Hello, I'm EnterElysium and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program Career Mode 1.0. I figured out a problem for our satellite network. I figured out the solution to the problem, should I say. They've got loads of RCS on them, and that actually provides a fair amount of Delta V, so I'm going to go through all of them really fast, luckily from post-production, and do burns with RCS and just get them up to 1,000,000 kilometers, and they should be able to get enough clearance around Kerbin to actually be able to talk to each other rather than getting blocked like they were before. As you can see now, they're up to 1,000,000 kilometers, and they're fine. I mean, they're a little bit off. I had some issues with one being on the dark side and not getting remote control, so I couldn't do the burn on time. But they have enough, like, they can see each other, right? They can see each other. It's cool. It's fine. We sorted that problem, and they've still got loads of RCS left. And also, by the way, thank you for pointing out that I got the wrong ship back. I recovered the wrong ship at the end of the last episode. So, thank you for pointing it out. Let's get this one back, and then we can have all the signs from it, which is, like, barely nothing, right? It doesn't have any signs on board? Or did it? I don't know. Let's find out. A little bit. We also got the funds back, which was, you know, not negligible, but it wasn't that much. And, I really want to upgrade the research center so I can get more stuff, although admittedly I don't have enough research points for that yet. I think I need to go to more planets. I really want to upgrade, like, everything, but money is so tight. Still money is so tight. I mean, contracts now are just like, do you want to go back to Mimbus again? No, I don't. I really don't. You know, I like the money aspect, but I hate the building upgrade cost. I don't know what to do about this, but I want to upgrade all the things, and I can maybe upgrade like one. Ugh. Anyway, Past Me has something very interesting to say. So, we've got some new Kerbals, and more precisely, we have the same Kerbals, but renamed. So, I've integrated the Patreons into the career mode, and other than Jebediah and Valentina, because they're badasses, I renamed the Kerbals after random Patreons. So, we've got Collider Kerman, Styles Kerman, Tarquin Kerman, Marcus Kerman, Amwet Kerman, Ahmed Kerman, Kvalan Kerman, Forbidden Kerman, Dejoke Kerman, Red Kerman, and Breathe. Excellent. Oh, 12 out of 12. Maybe we should upgrade the center just to get some 3 Kerbals. Yeah, costs money though. Let's go do a mission. And back to future me. So, we've got 2 things we want to do. We've basically gone through Mimbus. We haven't done the moon, like, almost at all. We've done a flyby, and that's about it. And we haven't done actually scanning Kerbin for biomes. So I want to scan both the moon and Kerbin for biomes. Now, the reason I really want to do Kerbin's biomes is because I have a contract that says if you scan the biomes, we'll give you money. And it, you know, it's not unreasonable. It's a good place to test out a biome scanning satellite, I guess. And it doesn't take much to get to Kerbin because we're already there. So we're going to go to the moon. We're going to scan the biomes there, send up a little probe and get that going. And we're also going to do one on Kerbin as well. So we're using basically the same thing we use for Mimbus. Like, this probe will work fine. It's got the right amount of Delta V to get to the moon. It's got plenty of Delta V, like it's got way too much to actually, you know, just get into orbit at Kerbin. It's a bit of a waste, but hey, I don't really mind. It doesn't cost that much. And frankly, I think that the fuel will come back anyway. Like, when we drop the thing with the parachute, like, it'll come back and we'll get 97% cost or whatever for it. So we won't lose that much. So we're going to launch the scanny probes. And the only important thing here is making sure they've got connection. Now, the one over the moon is going to be a little bit more tricky than the one over Kerbin. For instance, the one over Kerbin is going to have connection pretty much all the time because of the new Kerbin Communications Satellite Network, which is amazing. But over the moon, if we at all venture anywhere near the dark side, we'll suddenly get a communication blackout. So we've got to make sure we do this one right. That means go straight into orbit over the top of the moon, like, do our transfer burn and end up over the top as we get there. Then when we get to the top of the moon, over the pole, we do our circularization burn before even venturing in the dark side. If we get it wrong and we end up on the dark side, we won't be able to control it. So it'll be tricky. So we're going to go for the moon first, mainly because I feel like it. Yeah, that's pretty much the entire reason. So do our normal burn. I mean, this satellite itself is pretty lightweight, but it actually has a lot of Delta V. Like, the main superstructure is actually, you know, small fuel tanks with the little Oscar B engine. So there's you know, plenty of fuel going on there, despite its small size. You know, its small size belies its power. It's probably way over spec considering it's got like 3 kilometers left. Yeah, I don't really need 3 kilometers. That's not quite enough to get to Joule, but it's definitely pushing the realms of what the hell did you do with this? Why? Why did you ever think you'd need this? Well, I don't know. That's my answer. I have no idea. I don't know. I just like, you know what, screw it, put on more. I mean, actually, you know, I remember the reason. The reason is, some of the scanners I put on the side are fairly long, and I needed a longer superstructure, which meant it got more fuel tanks, which meant it got more Delta V. Yeah. I mean, the fuel tanks don't weigh a lot more than actual girders do. Like, I don't have the tiny little, like, really light girders. I have the, you know, 0.125 ton girders, and it's a case of, frankly, why would I want to use them when I can have fuel for effectively the same weight? So, I completely screwed up the transfer there. I went into a normal transfer rather than over the top of the moon. But it's fine, we have the Delta V, and actually, since we're so far away from the moon, we can do that. Like, it's not efficient, but it works. So, just making sure we're connected. I've actually set it up so that it's got a connection via Kerbin at the moment. I was going to maybe bounce the signal off Minmus, but Minmus is actually, you know, in the wrong place entirely to really get the advantage. So I'm just going to use the satellite to try and get a ping back from Kerbin. I'm going to use that one. So just setting up our little circularization burn here. As you notice, we're going straight over the top of the moon, so we still have signal. That means our orbit, our entire orbit, should, in theory, face Kerbin, which is an advantage to this. The fact that our orbit, we should be able to get, you know, 100% coverage when we're going around the moon, because effectively the plane of our orbit faces Kerbin. Of course, as, you know, things rotate, etc., this won't be the case. But for now, it means that we've got a pretty decent orbit going on. And it's just going to be a case of making sure it's, you know, circularized as much as possible. I think the optimal for the biome scan is about 250 kilometers, they say. So just making sure it's as rounded as possible, and then we'll start doing the scanning. Now we've also got an altimeter scanner on here, mainly because, you know, if you do like 95% scan and then you do some science on it, you can get science. So, you know, what the hell, why not? So you can see they're actually starting to mark out a decent path, although it's pretty slow. You know, one satellite has to go around many times before we get, you know, decent coverage. So I have no idea if we're actually going to be able to use that to land, or whether we're going to be landing blind, because I don't think it will have covered enough. But we're going to launch our next one now, and this one's just going to be Kerbin, so we're just going to be turning straight to the north and doing our inclination burn is just going to actually be, you know, actually in the ascent burn. Like, you know, we're going to just ascend to a polar orbit rather than actually doing any sort of inclination. Inclination, like going to 90-degree inclination from like a 0, if you were on like an orbital path around the equator, costs a lot of Delta V. We're talking serious, like, kilometer of Delta V or something, which we do actually have. The satellite is completely overspec'd, and is even more overspec'd when you consider the fact that we're just going above Kerbin, and we're not going to the moon or Minmus or another planet. But why not have the Delta V spare? I mean, actually, you know, once we've done our scanning with this, it has probably going to have enough Delta V left that we could send it to another planet. Like, you know, Juno or whatever, that takes about a kilometer of Delta V to get there, roughly. I mean, less than that. You could probably use this probe to go to Juno, and then start scanning from Juno. That's not a bad idea, actually. Just reuse the probe. I like that idea. Yeah, we could do that. Like, when the Juno thing shows up, we'll try and do a transfer burn to Juno. That's not a bad idea. Right, so this thing is basically in the right area. Just going to choose the signal now. I think we're going to bounce it off Minmus. You can see that we've got plenty of signal. Oh, by the way, look, Kerbin looks awesome. Kerbin looks really awesome. The Auroras aren't working for me. The Auroras come as part of the Eve pack, and I'm not sure why. It might be the Eve pack isn't compatible in that regard with 1.0. It could just be that I've screwed up the texture install, but I don't mind too much. The Auroras were nice, but I'm perfectly happy with our lovely textures. So, just going to do a tiny little bit of a burn to make sure that the orbit is, you know, as perfect as I want. Mainly because I can afford to with the Delta V. I mean, it doesn't need to happen, but why not? Why not? So, that's that done, and we've got our scan going on. Let's change it to... I don't think you can get biome on the small map, which seems weird. So I think you have to go to like the large map to get biome data, and it does update very slowly. But you can see our lovely little orbital path there. I always find it really... I don't know. It's fascinating how a circular path goes into this sort of horseshoey type shape. I mean, I understand fully how it happens, but I still find it really interesting. And that's that done. So, we're going to the moon. This is what we're taking to the moon. We're not going light, right? we're going big. Go big or go home, right? And we're going big. So I'll explain this as we start to de-shell it. But for the outside, we've got, 8 SRBs with parachutes, of course. So the SRBs are just gonna buff the thruster ratio in the early stages. We can need that thruster ratio being buffed. So drop them off. No explosions. Pretty good. Hopefully, it won't destroy the Space Center. I didn't really turn over very quickly there. And then we've got some asparagously staged 2.5 meters around the 2.5 meter center stage. So yeah, go big or go home really is the motto here. We're just going to burn up and away, just very gently. I'm a bit concerned about the thruster ratio does drop off, like it goes down by 0.5 after this stage. So just trying to get the maximum up thrust I can possible. And drop those. No explosions. I was concerned that those would explode, like they'd flick around and hit each other, but no. Especially when, they've got skipper engines, and skipper engines are worth several grand, let alone the rest of the stuff attached to them. Skipper engines alone are pretty nice to get back. So, just going up now, just gently want to turn over, make sure we get our apoaps, I'm going for 40, then we can do some serious turnover, but I think we could probably turn over a little bit earlier. There's our 40, so we're going to drop that a little bit more. So the idea of this is that I could go land on the moon, and I couldn't really do what you can do on Minmus, which is the biome hopping, where you go up and you come down, you go up and you go down, because the moon is much higher gravity, so going up and then coming down takes a lot more delta V. You can do it on Minmus, perfectly fine. The moon, you can maybe do it once, twice would really be pushing it, but it is not a particularly viable solution. So what I've done is I've made effectively a rover with some design lessons learned from the Minmus rover and with some more adaptations for the moon. There we go, we've lost our side stages. So this center stage, by the way, is not designed to come back. I fully understand that I probably want to use it for the transfer burn to the moon and have decided, screw it, it's not getting any parachutes, it's going to stay here with me. So just going to do our burn here. Gently, 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 gently. Still on a pretty low periaps is my concern, about -300, but it should get us there. I mean, it's got a lot of delta V in this stage. It was designed to be used like this, so I'm happy with it, but we didn't really do as much of our periaps on the ascent as I'd like. We went kind of a bit more up than I would have liked. I think I'd like to have smoothed over from, about where I was at about 25. If I'd smoothed that over a bit more instead of going, quite so vertical, I would have been much appreciated on that one. But now it's just a case of, making sure our orbit gets circularized properly. We're in orbit, and there's a camera. Awesome. So just circularizing it and then going to the moon. So the idea is for this, I'm probably thinking about landing somewhere near the equator in one of the craters, because they're nice and flat, and then from there going around and finding, I don't know, any biomes nearby that'll do. There are a couple of concerns with the craft. It doesn't have a lot of battery life. So I'm definitely going to be wanting to, land on the light side. And if things come to, problems, we do have the ability to run an alkaline fuel cell, which will take hydrogen, oxygen, make water, and give us some electricity. That is our backup, but it does involve, activating that and using up some of our oxygen reserves. I'm perfectly happy doing that, but it is certainly something that is our backup. So we've got a couple of solar panels on the front here. Those are going to be our primary source of power, but again, as a rover, they can be destroyed, and also, if we're in the dark side, they're useless. So let us de-shell. I've installed a new mod, by the way. I know I've updated a few mods, and I haven't put them in the description. I should probably do that some stage. But the new mod basically means that when the fairings go, instead of shattering into a million pieces and causing some weird physics glitches, and being weird, it makes them a lot more realistic, and I think nicer. So there we go. Instead of being, multi-stage part fairings, they just either like 2, 3. I think they could go up to 4 parts. I think like the 1.25 meter is a 2-part fairing, the 2.5 is a 3-part, and the 3.75 is a 4-part fairing, I think. I'm not sure. Of course, I haven't tried out the 4-part fairing yet, the 3.75 meter fairing, because I don't have it unlocked. Or do I? I don't know any stages that are that size, but we're going to do a transfer burn. I'm very pleased that this center stage can actually do the transfer burn. I was thinking we'd have to move to our upper stage, but luckily, we don't. It's all down to this bottom stage, so we're just going to thrust really hard of it, and now, it's nearly empty. We're getting some really serious push from it, especially with the skipper engine not really designed. It can be used in vacuum, but it's designed as one of these stages that can be used in vacuum and atmosphere equally, so it's a pretty meaty stage. Now we're just off to the moon, going, of course, passing in front to slow ourselves down, then go into an orbit, then go into a land. We're just going to do, a small correction burn there, and should end up at the moon presently. Hello, Mr. Moon. Ooh, electric charge is running out. And it seems that those side engines, which we'll get to in a minute, actually block the solar panels, so just turn around. That would be very bad. If we managed to run out of power and our Kerbals died, that would be very bad, because I'm pretty confident everything else on this craft is good. The whole power situation, yeah, probably could have done more batteries. But I ended up not putting them on because it would ruin the aesthetic of the craft. Yes, I am silly. So just going to do our circularization. Now, we only have, minimal amount of delta V, 50 delta V left in this lower stage. I will use it, but I want to use it with plenty of, a head time, because we're not going to use the stage, dump the stage, next stage. Because of the fact that our new engines are, aligned with our craft in a weird way, we have to do some, funky moving to actually use them. You'll see in a second. But it's a case of we're going to move to about 5 minutes from our node, burn off the last of that, which gives us a decent amount of delta V. And we'll eject it. There we go. And you can see that these side engines, of course, because they're pointed downwards and we're designed to land like a rover rather than, like a normal lander, we can use these docking ports to right-click control from, and then we can align ourselves down the thrust axis of the engines. Ta-da! See? This was very carefully designed. Not tested whatsoever, so things could seriously go wrong, but it was carefully designed. So it's just going to be a case of trying to figure out, it's telling me that the burn is going to be ages, and it's lying, obviously. So I worked this out. We need, a tenth of our delta V. It's got a 3-minute burn time. That means it's going to be roughly 18 seconds. So, just more than that, so it's going to be 20-second burn, roughly. So get to our burn location, especially considering the side engines. I'm a little bit concerned about going full thrust with them, just in case they're not perfectly aligned with our center of mass. They could, throw us about a little bit. So going to try and do our burn as carefully as we can, and we'll put the ladders down. Put the ladders down. Although that top ladder doesn't seem to be working. So these ladders are, partly a holdback to when I had it as a top-down lander design, and then I was like, actually, if we need to stand on top and get in and out the craft, and stand there getting science, we probably need them still there. So I was like, I'll leave them there. But there is still one at the bottom that serves absolutely no purpose. So we seem to be doing our burn perfectly well. We're not tilting or anything. Actually, if you look at our maneuver node, it's moving slightly. Maybe we are tilting a little bit. Although, the moon is lower gravity than Kerbin, so I'm perfectly happy not doing a full thrust burn. We could use a, 2/3 thrust burn, and we probably wouldn't get as much off target from it. You can see that, the maneuver node is definitely running away from us a little bit, but enough that I'm perfectly happy to try and land this puppy. It just might be a little bit more involved than I'd like, which will be unfortunate. Oh well. So, there we go, nearly done our burn, tiny bit more, and yeah. I mean, if we look at our periaps and apoaps, if we've got sort of 85, 55, it's not great, but it'll do. I mean, all we're doing is landing from it, so we're going to be ruining the orbit anyway. It just makes it slightly harder, and by slightly, I mean barely any harder. There is very little extra difficulty added by having a weird orbit for landing. I'm still a little bit concerned about coming down on these engines, especially onto gears, as opposed to, actual, landing legs. But we should be fine. Hopefully. Maybe. Anyway, at the front, by the way, you can see that we have our material bay. That's going to be a big part of our science, getting the material bay and using that. We also, of course, have some other little bits of science accoutrement somewhere around. Ooh! Atmospheric pressure scan. Don't mind if I do. So, there we go. We've got our atmospheric pressure scan. It's going to be a case of finding which bay I put it in. So I actually, had a couple of bays left. And I was like, you know what, I'll put my science experiments in there. So we've got that one's got a goo in it. And I think this one over here has everything else. That's a seismometer, a thermometer, and an atmospheric pressure scanner. So they're, right next to the ladder. So you can stand on the ladder and you can grab from them. So if we just eject our Kerbals, and of course these are newly named Kerbals, who have changed their names for the good of the Kerbal Space Agency or whatever. Ooh, by the way, I love the new the visor. The visor was originally sort of a goldish color, and I was like, I kind of want a bluish color, so I just went into Photoshop and edited it, and it works really nice. I really like it. So we're just gonna, no, not log. No, I mean take data. We want don't want to overwrite the data we just got. Although I think we're still in the same situation, so it would be fine. And back in. And it worked perfectly. Excellent. So next episode, we will be landing with this and running around on the moon. I have no idea if it's going to work, but that's half the fun of Kerbal Space Program, I guess. I hope it does. I've been EnterElysium. If you enjoyed, please leave a like. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. And until next time, stay shiny.